On Wednesday, the 31st of October, it will be 500 years since the start of a movement that changed the world. On the 31st of October 1517, a monk called Martin Luther posted what have now become known as his 95 Theses. That doesn't sound like much to us, but in that moment the seeds of a revolution were planted, a revolution we now know as the Protestant Reformation. Who was Martin Luther? What was the Reformation? And why does it still matter today? Over these next 5 days, Tim, Marie and myself will try to answer those questions in these 5 short videos. I think you'll be surprised just how much you owe to Martin Luther and others like him. And I hope that you'll see that the fire of the Reformation is just what our church and our world needs today. So, before we take a look at the impact of the Reformation, who was Martin Luther? Well, we're not talking about the civil rights campaigner of 1960s America. Martin Luther was a German monk who lived between 1483 and 1546. His father intended that he should train as a lawyer, but God had other ideas. Changing the course of his life dramatically, possibly after being caught in a violent thunderstorm, Luther trained to be a monk. And slowly but surely, God ignited in Luther a passion to call the church back to the truth of the gospel. Luther became convinced that the church of his day was no longer holding out the promise of life in Christ to the world around it. And so he became convinced that the church needed to change. That's why we use the word Reformation, changing the church, and so changing the world. And that's exactly how God used Martin Luther in Germany, John Calvin in Geneva, Thomas Cranmer in England, and many others like them. They were used by God to change their world. The next 3 videos will look at how we're still reaping the benefits of the Reformation even today. And then I'll come back with a 5th and final video to describe how God lit the fuse on the 31st of October 1517, exactly 500 years ago.